Your ADHD, I'm sorry, but you can't use it as an excuse as to why you're late. If you're not 6 hours until the due date, you're absolutely chilling. And then everyone and their mom would come out of the woodwork and be like, I also have ADHD. Definitely used it like as a victim complex. After I got diagnosed with ADHD, like I would absolutely just milk it. You guys, it's time to get our shit together. No, because after next weekend, I am never drinking again. What the fuck is a 401k? Look how hot the guy is that I just matched with on Tinder. Am I the only one freaking out right now? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Get Your Shit Together. Listen, y'all, I know I haven't seen you guys in a few weeks. It's because I've been crashing out on my assignments. I kind of realized, I don't think I ever really said this on the podcast, but I'm finishing my degree right now. So we'll have a bachelor's in communication. Whenever people ask me why I chose communication to get my degree in, I say it's because my ex-boyfriend said I was a really bad communicator. And so I went and got a bachelor's degree in it to prove him wrong. So I'm finishing up my degree right now. And let me tell you guys, I've just been crashing the hell out. So I had to take a 2-week pause because I had my capstone project and assignments coming out the wazoo. And I am someone who likes to leave things very last minute, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do as well. So I had a capstone project that I was supposed to be working on for the whole entire year of my 4th year. And I decided that I was going to wait and do the bulk of it a week and a half before it's due. What? And so that has been my life recently, just like trying to get that capstone project finished. But it's really funny because in my undergrad, I kind of just always assumed that people left things till the last minute, and I like wasn't the only one who did that until I started living with my academic weapon of a roommate. And then we would be in the same classes together, and she would be done the project 4 days before I was due, and I'm like, baby girl, I was like, what are you doing? We're not even in the second period yet. I was like, the game hasn't even begun. If you're not T-minus 6 hours until the due date, you're absolutely chilling. And that is how I have always lived my academic life. Like even whenever I was in elementary school, high school, like I was the kid who was saying, oh shoot, like I forgot my homework at home when it just absolutely wasn't done. And I just kind of thought that that was the normal. I thought most people were like that until I got diagnosed with ADHD. And that is what is going to be the bulk of this episode because my ADHD has been more apparent than ever recently when I am pissed off at myself that I waited till the last minute to do my capstone project. And ADHD is something that this generation specifically, I think, has like felt the effects of. And I kind of wanted to share my story with ADHD, my takeaways from it, and what you can do to balance that. Because something that really aggravates me, or it did for a little while, is when I would talk about my ADHD and then everyone and their mom would come out of the woodwork and be like, I also have ADHD. And here's the thing, because it feels a little unvalidating to my experience or to other people's experience who are like diagnosed with it. And I mean, the same goes for any other kind of disorders. Like if you have anxiety or you suffered from depression, like there's been times where I definitely have been like, oh, I'm depressed, when I don't have depression. Like I just experiences waves of sadness or waves of anxiety, but that doesn't mean that you have clinical depression or clinical anxiety. And it's kind of the same thing with ADHD. Like everyone has aspects of ADHD. Everyone can not do something on time. Everyone can have difficulty starting a project. Everyone has difficulty concentrating. Like these aren't new concepts. You can not have ADHD and still struggle with these things. I think the difference is when it's actively affecting your life to the point where you need to develop strategies in order to have the same lifestyle that someone has without ADHD. And I was talking about this with my roommate the other day too, is I think like you can go, now listen, I should preface this. I am not a scientist. One time in grade 10, I did my English speech about ADHD and like I actually did research into like the chemical imbalances with ADHD, but I'm gonna preface this by saying that I have no idea about the actual science behind ADHD. So we're gonna be talking about this more from like, I don't know, like an inner emotions level, shall we? I think that you can go through periods of your life where you develop ADHD or ADHD tendencies without actually having it throughout your life. For example, let me break this down. I have had ADHD and ADHD tendencies since I was a child. Like I've shown signs of this since I was a young toddler, and I'll get into that and my experience with it and like the warning signs in a little bit. However, I think ADHD can also be a big lifestyle thing. The same with people who have depression. You can go through periods of your life where you are depressed, but that doesn't mean you're going to suffer with depression all of your life. And a lot of that has to do with lifestyle. And that's something that I talk about a lot with my friends, is a lot of the mental health issues that we as a society go through are not necessarily like diagnosed engross things into our personality. However, they are simply lifestyle choices and habits that we ensue that have a negative consequence that ends up developing into things like depression or ADHD or anxiety. So, for example, if you're someone who hasn't necessarily always seen these sides of yourself and hasn't always been someone who has thought they had ADHD, and then just your lifestyle habits, you're always going on your phone, you're always getting stimulation 24/7, you're always listening to something, then you start slacking off at school, it can snowball into feeling like you have ADHD. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's something clinical that you're going to deal with all of your life. So I think that's kind of disconnect that we see whenever people say like, oh my God, I have ADHD too. Well, it's like you might not necessarily have like a diagnosed chemical imbalance in your brain of ADHD. It might just be, number one, some lifestyle habits that you're choosing, and a snowball effect of once you get into these bad habits, it's hard to break them. And then also number two, like I said, ADHD is ADHD tendencies are a normal part of life. Everyone experiences these things. It's until it starts affecting your day-to-day life and it makes it difficult to complete average day tasks. That's when you can really look inward and have a conversation with your doctor and have a conversation with medical professionals about, okay, is this something that is worth getting diagnosed with? So I kind of grew up with the assumption, like I knew something. I had a little bit of sparkle, shall we say. I always knew that like there was something a little bit off, but I also think that I always thought everyone was like this. I remember being in class and we would have chapters to read, right? Like your teacher would say like, okay, it's time to read these pages silently and independently. I would never read them, because I would try to read them, but I couldn't focus on the actual words and I couldn't digest the material that I was reading. So I just wouldn't read it. Or then my teacher would say, okay, complete these 4 math questions. Once you're done these math questions, you could go home or you can go for recess, whatever. I would just pretend that I did them and I would never do them. And it's because I could never get myself to actually do them. And I remember I would lie to my teacher saying like, oh yeah, I did them. And I always remember I felt really guilty about it. I remember like telling my mom as a child, I was like, Mom, I have something to tell you. And I was like, I don't actually do my homework. And I was like, I don't actually like do my math questions in school whenever the teacher tells us to. But it's because I genuinely like couldn't get myself to. And my brain couldn't understand how to do these things independently without being prompted. So that's whenever I first I knew something was a little bit off, but I really didn't pay attention to it that much. And then as I got older, I started seeing it more in the way that it manifested in my room being messy, or me not being very good at detail-oriented things because I would move too quickly, or just me being really loud and getting in trouble all the time and being called a distraction. And so I saw it in that ways as I got older, but still no one ever really said anything to me. Like it was kind of like, oh, this is what Emily's like typical Emily, like, oh my God, Emily, you're such a crackhead. And I was like, guys, no, I think I like actually need some help here. And something my parents said to me about what I was like as a child, I think really shows my ADHD if you break it down, is they were like, whenever you were a baby, whenever you weren't being held, someone would hold you and then they would put you down and you would just cry and sob. And I don't know why I think that has an effect to my ADHD, but I know it does because I know it affects the way that I break down my emotions and the way that I digest emotions. So flash forward to grade 10, I start doing the quintessential, do you have ADHD quizzes on YouTube? You know, like you would look up on YouTube and it would like give you like a bunch of prompts, like answer this A, B, and C. It's like, if you said A to all these questions, you have ADHD. And then I just started telling people that I had ADHD. And then in grade 10, I went and got like diagnosed by my doctor with it. And for a little bit, it was so validating at first to finally have someone tell you that, like, yeah, we can see that like you struggle with it and it's because of this reason. It's not because like something is just inherently wrong with you. Like there is something biologically and chemically like going on that causes you to have these tendencies. However, I will say that after I got diagnosed with ADHD, I definitely used it like as a victim complex. After I got diagnosed with ADHD, like I would absolutely just milk it. I would get in trouble and I was like, well, it's because I have ADHD. And I remember one of my teachers saying to me, she's like, that's not an excuse. And I remember crying over it because I was like, okay, I don't get this. So it isn't an excuse to have ADHD and I still have to be like everyone else and assimilate into this, but also it is affecting my life. And so I just didn't really know like what way to use it. Is an excuse or is it not an excuse? Here's what I've come to terms to after like 21 years of living with ADHD. ADHD is not an excuse as to why you can't be like the average person, as to why you can't assimilate into society. Your ADHD, I'm sorry, but you can't use it as an excuse as to why you're late. You can't use your ADHD as an excuse as to why you didn't get your homework done. You cannot use ADHD as an excuse for not being able to complete your daily tasks. However, with that being said, you can use ADHD and your diagnosis with ADHD as validation to yourself that you need to develop habits and routines that make you able to assimilate to this society, make you able to get your homework done. ADHD is not an excuse. ADHD is a validation that your life looks differently than others. Just because your life looks differently than others doesn't mean that you can just drop the ball and say, okay, sorry, my life looks differently than others, can't do this. No, it means you need to reset and reframe your thinking. So many people will always say that like, oh, standardized education isn't the way to like educate kids because everyone thinks differently and everyone learns differently. And it's the same thing with ADHD. It's just ADHD people think differently, they work differently, and you need to figure out what works for you so you can go and be a proactive person and a person within society that doesn't make excuses because of their ADHD. So throughout my life, I have just been learning and figuring out what works for me and what doesn't through a lot of trial and error. Like having ADHD is one of the most discouraging things in my life because it impacts everything I do. And it honestly is just a big trial and error of what works for you and what doesn't. So I thought I would go through like some of the ways that ADHD affects my life because I know for a fact this is going to be really validating for other people because I think a lot of the times when we think of ADHD, a lot of people just think of, oh, you're really loud or oh, you don't pay attention or you can't get things done on time or it's really hard to focus. But there's so much more that is ingrained into ADHD from how you process emotions, from any facet of life. One of the biggest challenges with my ADHD and something that I've learned about myself over the years is that I am an extremist in every single facet of my life. I describe it kind of like a light switch. I'm either turned on or I'm either turned off. And that affects every single discipline of my life. It affects food. I did an episode a few episodes ago about my eating disorder. My eating disorder was completely affected by my ADHD. So I am either eating 5,000 calories a day or I'm eating nothing. I swear to God, like my body just has no idea what's going on. Like my regulation is just completely off because it's either getting absolute binge eating or it's getting starvation mode. And it's because I don't know balance. That's the thing. A lot of people with ADHD struggle with balance. And like I said, we're just extremists. So in my head, if I like eat a chocolate bar, I'm like, oh, well, I'm already off the deep end. I might as well eat everything else in sight. Or same thing if I don't eat anything. It's like, oh, well, I haven't like eaten anything today. Like I might as well just not eat anything. My ADHD has always affected my relationship with food, but my ADHD has also affected the way that I do work. I will either be so, and I'm sure you guys have noticed it, like I will either be so proactive on my podcast and I will post every single day or multiple times a day, or you won't hear from me for 2 weeks. That's kind of just the reality of it. It's either I'm fully on and I'm like, okay, it's go mode, it's grind time, or I am completely off and I can't even think about it. It also has severely affected my relationships. I have told now, once I've like started recognizing this, I kind of came to this conclusion that I'm like a light switch and an extremist when I was around 18. I kind of figured that out about myself. And then from that, I just started telling people that I got into relationships with that I am like this. And something I do is that I either want to be around the person like 24/7 and I become obsessive with them, or it's just like, I don't want to see you at all. Like it's not working out. So whenever I get into a relationship, I can definitely become the partner that like becomes really obsessive and they need to be around them 24/7. And I stop doing things for myself and I put all of my energy into them, but it's because I'm like this light switch. Or once I'm not like that, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't have any more attachment to them. Like, I don't need to see them. It's a lot easier for my brain to be with someone 24/7 or to never see them. And I realize this too. My last two, like the relationship that I'm currently in and my last relationship have both been long distance relationships. And I realized for my ADHD brain, it like scratches the perfect itch because like I said, I'm like an extremist. I either want to be with them all the time or not at all. And in long distance relationships, that is exactly what it is. You get to be with your person for like, let's say a week or 3 days or however long the period of time is, straight with no breaks. And then when I get to go back to my little life, I'm like, I don't have to see them. Like, this is my own thing. And it's like, I obviously am still in the relationship. Like, I'm still talking to the person every day. We're FaceTiming, whatever, texting. But it's like, it scratches that all in or all out mentality that my ADHD brain has always just operated on. And so I don't know what like the future of my relationships looks like when they're not long distance, because my last relationship, when it wasn't long distance, that's when it would always crumble, because we would go back to not being long distance in the summers and then we would be together all the time. And like I said, because I'm like a light switch and it's like I just get obsessive and I'm like, I need to be with them all the time if I'm turned on. That is what ultimately ended up like crushing my relationship, is because I was with them so much and I was giving every single piece of myself to them that I like honestly just ended up hating them. I was like, I hate them. Like, I don't want to be around them anymore. Like, this sucks. But it was so weird because I was then emotionally attached to the person that I still felt like I had to spend all my time with them. So my ADHD has significantly impacted my relationships in that way, that and my friendships too. Like, I sometimes will get really close to a person and I will be with them all the time 24/7, or then I will just like have less of a intense relationship with them and I won't really see them. It's like one way or the other. So with that being said, having that like light switch facet in my life, I obviously know that like that is not a healthy way to live your life. You can't live your life with an extremist approach, right? Like, everything needs to have balance. So since I've recognized that about myself in the last like 4 years or so, that's whenever I've been starting to figure out habits, figure out systems that work for me to have this light switch extremist mentality not affect my life as much. Oh my God. Okay. I was checking my notes to see what other things I wrote down that my ADHD affects in my life. Forgetting things. I have the worst memory at all. ADHD affects like your working brain. I don't know about y'all. For anyone who has ADHD listening to this, if your memory is also good, it's not that like I forget things that happen, but I forget the details. I remember in high school, like my friends wouldn't even want to like tell me things because they're like, I know you're gonna go and tell somebody this and get it completely wrong. But not because I'm like gossiping or trying to manipulate the story. It's because my brain genuinely does not remember all of the information I was told. And so I start trying to just fill in the gaps of what I remember. And then the story just gets completely twisted. And it's really kind of come back to haunt me sometimes when I will be telling someone important information or be telling someone a story, and then I completely forget and get it twisted, and then it looks really bad on me because it looks like I'm twisting a story and trying to manipulate it. And I'm like, guys, no, I promise I literally just have chronic ADHD and like I don't remember, so my brain's just trying to fill in the gaps. But like I said, we don't use ADHD to be a victim. Okay, another thing, this is, if not the light switch analogy, this is probably one of the things that affects my life the most, is that I move way too quickly. If you have ADHD, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I have no attention to detail, shall we say. Whenever I'm applying for a job and it says we need someone who pays attention to detail, I'm like, oh, perfect. I am absolutely the worst candidate for this job because I move way too quickly. And it's so frustrating because it affects my life in so many different ways. For example, I'll give you an example that happened like 2 days ago. My friend Danica gave me a really cute white shirt that she bought online that she didn't like. And I was like, oh my God, it's so cute. I'll take it. Brilliant. So I was at her house. I put it in my bag. I just stuff it in my bag. And then I go to dance class. Later, before dance class, I was eating a granola bar and then I just threw the wrapper into my bag because, again, I'm moving quickly. I'm not even thinking about where I'm putting this wrapper. I'm not even thinking about where I'm putting this shirt. I just stuff everything into my bag. Then I'm going to the washroom and I'm looking in my bag. I pull out this beautiful white shirt to what looks like shit covered all over in this shirt. And it's because I just threw this wrapper into my bag and it had chocolate on it, on the wrapper, and now the shirt got drenched with this chocolate. And I'm like, amazing. I just ruined this beautiful satin shirt that my friend gifted me because I just threw a chocolate wrapper into this. And so that's what I mean by I don't think about things. I don't think about the details of things. I move too quickly. And this has also contributed to me being really injury prone. Talked about it a lot. Y'all know my past with me being injury prone, but I've broken my arm 3 times. I've had 3 surgeries on this arm. I have cut off my index finger. I have a huge, ginormous scar right here that I got 18 stitches on. I am always falling. I am always tripping over something. I'm always breaking a bone. And I hate to say it, but it is literally because of my ADHD. I move too quickly. My brain is going a million miles at once. So it's like my body loses all like cognitive function where I'm just tripping over stuff because I'm moving too quickly. And that's something my mom has always said to me. She was like, Emily, like, you just need to slow down. It's so difficult because I'm like, I don't even necessarily like know how to do that. Like, for example, I see this manifesting in like my organization that I move too quickly. And it frustrates me because I'm like, why can't I be organized? Like, why does my bag look like a tornado right now? Like, why does it literally look like an explosion happened in my tote bag? And it's because I move too quickly. It's because I don't take the time to nicely fold a shirt and put it in this corner of my bag. It's because I just throw shit around. I just throw things in there. And it's so difficult for my brain to wrap around the idea that it's like, okay, if you just take the extra second to fold this, I don't even think about it. Like, it's not even a thought. It's just okay, yeah, throw it in there, let's go. Same thing as whenever I get home and I change out of this outfit, I will probably throw all of these clothes on my bedroom floor because it's not even a thought in my brain that I should put this away. And that is one of my ADHD tendencies. And oh my God, the amount of times someone tells me, if I hear one person tell me, when you put something down, pick it up, I will crash the hell out on you because my brain doesn't even register that. Every single week, I will do a ginormous deep clean of my bedroom and of my closet just for 3 days later, it to become an abomination again. And it's because I just don't have the patterns and the habits in my brain to know when you drop something, pick it up. When you take off a shirt, hang it back up on the hanger. Don't just try on a million outfits and then all of your clothes are scattered on your bedroom floor and then you leave. And it's so discouraging, but I've kind of just had to learn how to live in chaos. And I think a lot of ADHD people can relate to that, is like, we just thrive in chaos, baby. Like, honestly, sometimes the more organized something is, the more it kind of eats me up because then I'm like, oh, I need to keep it organized like this, but I can't do that. So over the last 21 years of my life, I have really just had to rely on thriving in chaos. I also don't want it to sound like ADHD is just this like awful thing that like, boo-hoo, like look at me, I just have to live in a chaotic environment all the time. Because honestly, thriving in chaos is probably one of the best things that I like about myself. Like it is one of my strongest personality facets that I can thrive in absolute chaos. Someone can hand me a mic and I don't need to rehearse some big script. I don't need to jot down my ideas. Like when I tell you guys, I come up with the podcast ideas usually 30 minutes before the show. If I scripted out and really methodically planned out an episode like days, weeks in advance, like it would be the most robotic. Hi, today we are going to talk about ADHD. Like it's way better for my brain to just be able to spew the things that are going inside this absolute carnival of a brain. And that's why you see a lot of people who are creatives and who work in the creative space are people with ADHD because they thrive on chaos, and you kind of need to thrive on chaos to be in a creative role. And honestly, to me, when I think of creativity is chaos. Creativity is organized chaos. I think that people who are the most creative are people who have facets of ADHD, and I kind of think they go a little bit hand in hand, which is why I probably see a lot of people in my life having ADHD because I surround myself with a lot of creative people. But I went through all the tumultuous little boo-hoos of how ADHD affects my life. Now I want to go through the things that I have learned and what systems have worked for me and what systems I recommend you trying. Because like I said, with ADHD, you need to figure out what works for you, and you can't just blame everything on your ADHD, and you can't just live in fight or flight mode all the time, and you need to start putting in habits that can rectify your ADHD tendencies. My relationship with ADHD meds is kind of like, it's a tumultuous one. I talked about, again, in my episode of my eating disorder, that I used ADHD stimulants for a long time to suppress my appetite and to stimulate my eating disorder. So like I said, ADHD meds and we have a complicated past, because of the side effects that medication gives you. However, those side effects aside, even if ADHD side effects weren't to do with my eating disorder in the past, I would still have the same thoughts I have on medication. I don't see ADHD medication as a permanent solution. I see it as a Band-Aid. For example, I am on Vyvanse right now, and I just got back on it a few months ago, and it's because I said to my doctor, I was like, I need a little bit of extra help right now. I'm finishing up my undergrad. I, for some reason, decided to do a podcast in the busiest time of my life. I am the president of a tennis team. I have a job. I have so many things going on in my personal and in my work life. I was like, I need a bit of extra help right now. However, I don't want to be on that medication long term because I see medication as a Band-Aid. I don't think that it is a long-term solution because I think that ADHD and having it is one of the most magical things in the world in the sense that it prompts your creativity. It allows you to thrive in chaos. It gives you this fun, spunky personality that gives you a sparkle. So many people have always told me I just have a sparkle about myself, not to suck my own dick, but I have this sparkle about myself, and I genuinely think that that's my ADHD. And I see it in other people who have ADHD that they just have this glistening personality to them and this aura to them. And I honestly think that is stimulated from ADHD. So when you think about medication, it's yeah, ADHD negatively affects my life. However, I don't want it to take away the most beautiful things about my personality. So I think ADHD medication should be used as a Band-Aid and not a long-term solution. The long-term solution is the trial and error of seeing what works for you and what doesn't. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to get into all my strategies to become a boss-ass bitch in your 20s, 30s, whatever stage of life you're in while managing your ADHD. All right. So number one, find someone to mirror. And when I say that, I mean, you need to find somebody that is doing all of the things that you want to be doing, has the good habits, has the good routines, and mirror that. If I tell myself I want to get up at 6 a.m. and go to the gym, I find it really hard to follow through with that plan. And I can have that plan in my head, but I find it really difficult to actually do the actual steps that it takes to doing that. So for example, my roommate works at 8 a.m. every day, somewhat near my school. So a lot of times I will be like, okay, I'm gonna wake up when she wakes up and I'm going to commute with her. And that it's so helpful having someone next to me doing what I need to be doing, because it feels like it's a mirror. I'm looking at someone that is doing what I want to be doing, and it makes it easy for me to mirror them. But if I'm by myself, I just could easily not do that commute. I could easily not just go to school at 7 a.m. and start working really early in the morning. I could absolutely just keep lying in bed. But I see someone in front of me having those positive habits, doing the thing that I want to be doing, and I mirror them. It's kind of like the same ideology that your network is your net worth, right? Like if you're a product of your environment, hang out with the type of people that you want to be like. If you're hanging out with a bunch of bums, you're going to be a bum. If you hang out with a bunch of artists, you're going to create art. So spend time with people that you can mirror. Don't spend time with people that are flaking off their assignments. Don't spend time with people that are doing the things that you don't want to be doing. Because the more that you repeat an action, the more it will become a habit, right? I don't know what the statistic is of how many times you do something, it becomes a habit. I don't know all that. But I'm saying if you spend time with someone and you can mirror someone that is doing what you want to be doing, you will eventually start doing it more and more. So this can be emulated through the gym. If you get a gym buddy who goes to the gym consistently, start working out with them. If you feel like you need to be doing schoolwork with someone who's really like a grinder and they lock the hell in, when I do schoolwork with my friends who just all we do is yap together, I get nothing done. Those are the wrong people to mirror in that context. Obviously, I still love hanging out with my friends like in a different setting that isn't schoolwork wise, but if I know I need to get work done and I know I can't be distracted, I need to mirror someone that limits distractions. Number 2, know yourself and draw your boundaries. For example, I am someone, like I said, we've talked about this before, I'm a light switch, right? So I'm all the way in or all the way out. I find with ADHD, it's really difficult to start something. It's like this ADHD paralyzation where you can't get yourself to start. Starting a project is always the most difficult thing with ADHD. But once you get going, oh baby, it is a wheel. We are freaking booming. But if you have ADHD, you know that starting the task is literally the hardest thing in the world. So I find a lot of times when I have finally got myself to start and I'm locked in, people will always say like, oh, you need study breaks, or oh, go take a break, or go take a walk around the block. But I know myself and I know that I can't do that, because if I get locked out of that headspace and I take that break, it will be nearly impossible for me to start again. So this is something that I've come to understand about myself. I know that unfortunately when I start something, I have to finish it. I can't take that break, because once I'm locked in, I don't know when that momentum will surface again. So often I will like call myself, or I'll call my mom when I'm working. I'll talk to her. I'm like, yeah, I'm really stressed out. I've been working for 5 hours straight. And she's like, why don't you just take a break? Like, you're at school working, why don't you commute home and then go do work at home? But I'm like, I can't. If I get locked out for more than 10 minutes, I'm not locking back in. So know your boundaries and know your habits. If you know that you have to stay locked in and people are saying like, oh, well, we're just gonna go for a little walk right now, we're gonna go for a little snack, you don't need to go. If you know that I need to stay locked in to complete this task because I won't be able to start again, then know your boundary and commit to that. Number 3, for the love of God, stop writing unrealistic to-do lists. People have always told me, write to-do lists, write a step-by-step guide of what you need to do in the morning. However, for some reason, when I do that to-do list, I put 18 million things on it that are absolutely impossible to do with all in one day. So please, for the love of God, stop writing unrealistic to-do lists, because you know what it does? You will only be able to complete maybe one or two of those things on your to-do list, and you will start losing trust with yourself. For a really long time, I did not trust myself because I would tell myself that I would do things. I'd be like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and I wouldn't do it because it would either be too hard to start and I wouldn't get locked in, or I was unorganized and I couldn't figure out in time how to do it. I would write these to-do lists without giving myself the proper prerequisite into doing it. Like I would say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym, but I would never even think about what am I going to hit at the gym. So stop giving yourself these unrealistic to-do lists where, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start my business, then tomorrow I have to finish this essay, and then I'm going to meal prep for the whole entire week. Stop that, because you're not going to do that. And then you're going to lose trust with yourself that you don't ever accomplish the things that you set out to do. So to-do lists, make them, but make them wise and make them strategic with only one or two things that you need to do. And something that's actually been really helpful for me is, like I said, like starting a task with ADHD is probably the most difficult part of the process. And so now when I write out a to-do list, I will write out the first step I need to do in that process, because it makes it so much easier to start, because now I have a foundation to start on. I know what the first thing I have to do is, instead of getting so overwhelmed by the task itself and by all of it. You know what the first thing is that you have to do. So let's say like your task, or the first thing you want to put on your to-do list tomorrow is, okay, I want to go meal plan. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to write meal plan, meal prep. First thing you're going to do, step number one, is go to the grocery store. Or step number one is go on YouTube and watch a YouTube video on meal prepping. Give yourself the first step into the process, and it will make your life so much easier. Number 4, this one comes to haunt me. Do something you have to do the second you think of it. I am someone who, I know I have to do something, but I'm like, oh, I'll do it later, or I'll deal with that later. But then later never comes. I went home last weekend and my suitcase is still sitting in my bedroom unpacked. And it will probably remain that way for probably another month. However, if I had gotten back from my trip and I had unpacked my suitcase right away, it already would have been dealt with, and it wouldn't even have been something mentally exhausting in my mind. But now that suitcase feels like the biggest weight on my shoulders because it's been there for so long. Another example of that is text messages. And oh, I know y'all are just like this too. I have 266 unread text messages. Now let's go look at email, shall we? I have 2,341 unread emails. And it's because I see these emails come in. I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. Don't worry. And then later never comes. So something I've been trying to do, I'm not always the best at it, but something I've been trying to do is, as soon as I see a text message, respond to it instantly. But then like sometimes I'd be like, well, I don't want to respond to it instantly. Like I don't want to look too eager. Like I don't want them to think like, oh my God, this girl is on her phone all the time. Guys, everyone is on their phone all the time. When you see a text message, respond to it right away. And then honestly, like when someone responds to my text right away, it makes me like them more, because I'm like, okay, I don't have to be delivered for 2 weeks on end. Anyways, I can think of multiple people right now in my head that I haven't answered their text, and it's like weighing on me mentally. Like now I'm gonna have to put this in my to-do list of when I'm going to answer their text, because it's draining me so much. So if you just do something the minute that it comes into your brain, it will never have to be something that hangs on your shoulders. Number 5, when you get home from somewhere, do not sit down. Just sitting down in general. And now that I think about it, a lot of these advice things are coming back to the root of it's hard to start something, right? So like, even for example, responding to a text. The reason why I don't do it for so long is because it's hard to start. The reason why whenever I say don't sit down, it's because you won't get back up. Once I sit down, I'm out for the count. Like when I tell you, okay, this is actually foul and I should not be admitting this on the internet, but I will go to the gym and then I will instead of getting home from the gym and showering right away, I'll sit down on my couch and I'll be like, oh, I'll just go on my phone for a bit and then I'll go take a shower. And then it ends up being 2 hours later and I've been sitting in my smelly, sweaty gym clothes for 2 hours. And then one time I got a yeast infection. My doctor was literally like, if you were sitting in sweaty clothes too long, like that can absolutely cause a yeast infection. I'm like, there is no way that I gave myself a yeast infection by literally just sitting in my gym clothes and rotting in my gym clothes for too long because I was too complacent to go and take a shower right away. So do not sit down. If you are making a meal and you're making dinner, wash the dishes right away. Don't go sit down to like eat that meal. I know you might want to, and I know it's a lot more convenient to go and enjoy that meal, but it will become a way less taxing thing on your to-do list if you do your things right away and you do not sit down. So this is a tip for future Emily and for everyone else. When you go to the gym, go take a shower right away, you smelly ass bitch. Don't go sit down and rot in your gym clothes for 2 hours and then get a yeast infection. All right, the last one I have for you guys is stop listening to shit all the time. You don't need to be overstimulated all the time. ADHD brains have so many ideas and so many things going on in their head. You don't need to be listening to something all the time. You don't need to have a podcast going on all the time. You don't need to be like, it's getting bad when you literally have, I know y'all know this too, is when you'll be like doing the dishes or like something and you're watching TikTok and a TikTok has replayed 8 times because you haven't swiped to the next one because you're doing something, but you feel like your brain needs to be stimulated by something else. So you're like re-listening to something over and over again. You do not need to be stimulated at all times of the day. Turn off the podcast, turn off the music. Let yourself sit in your own thoughts for a little bit. I know, scary, crazy idea, but you do not need to be stimulated all the time because it will negatively affect your life. I realized one time that I'm so uncomfortable with silence because I always have something going on all the time. I'm always listening to a podcast. I'm always watching Netflix in the bathroom or background. I'm always listening to music. There's always something stimulating my brain, and it is so unbelievably bad for us because we are always constantly then distracted. And then on top of it, then you're just overstimulated all the time with a million different things going on. You have all the freaking voices in your head, and then on top of it, you have whatever's going on in this thing. Guys, our parents were right. This is the problem, I fear. So to wrap it up, those are the 6 best pieces of advice that I have that I've kind of learned about myself, managing my ADHD and managing my ADHD symptoms. And as I've gotten older and as I'm in like a young adult part of my life, is like I'm ready to tackle higher responsibilities. I've gotten my degree, I've got my education, I've put in the work, and I don't want my bad habits and my tendencies from ADHD to affect my future. And I want to get my shit together. I want to have a good job. I want to have a good life. And you will have a good life with ADHD. Like I said, having ADHD can be a beautiful thing, but you need to put habits and steps into the process that make dealing with this easier and make it more efficient, because ADHD, you can let it take over your life. There have been so many times in my life where it has absolutely consumed me and I felt like I dug a hole that I could not get out of. But having those steps in process and having those steps in place and those habits and those trials and errors, you can get your shit together with it. And with having ADHD, you have a responsibility to manage that and to get your shit together with that. And you've put in so much work and so much effort into becoming educated and into having the jobs and doing the tasks that you've done to get to where you are. So for the love of God, please start implementing these habits and these tactics that make things easier on yourself, because we all deserve to live a great life and we all deserve to manage whatever patterns our brains have, whether it's anxiety or depression or ADHD, whatever you were born with or whatever you see yourself exuding, we all deserve at most to give ourselves the self-respect to create habits and create patterns that can make us live the best life that we possibly can and can help us get our shit together. So with that being said, that is the end of this episode. I'm going to go home and pop another Vyvanse so I can get this capstone done on time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on everywhere you get your podcasts. Rate the show 5 stars because y'all just love me like that. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Get your shit together. I think it's GYS Together podcast. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.